Okay, I want to take a look at foundations and footings and essentially all things that support the building here. There are some questions about how to model footings, how to model foundations. Um, and the difficult thing about this is that there are a lot of ways to do this. So we're going to look at a couple of different options here. I just kind of mocked up some walls here, but I want to start with the story settings. This is sort of where every project needs to start. So in this case, just to show some examples of different conditions, I'm showing a basement and a foundation. Here I have my basement, or my foundation rather, 6 inches below my foundation, and my basement 10 inches to the next floor up. If we look at these walls here, this would be the basement area. There's 0 to home story, but I actually want this to run all the way down to the foundation. So I'm going to say this is -6 inches. So that wall is actually 10'6" from top of footing to the floor above. If I had floor thickness on this, I could actually drop this down, let's say -12 inches, so that I have the floor sitting on it platform framed. That's probably the ideal there. Let's go ahead and eyedrop and inject that into here. And then let's make sure that these are also extending below the floor. So here you can see these walls are 6 feet above that foundation, or sorry, above the basement level, so that I have like this crawl space area here, and then I have the floor that would run over the top of these. So the -1 foot. So these are actually just a 3-foot stem wall. I think I missed this one right here. Let's go ahead and inject that in there. And let's take a look at what this looks like now. Oh, I did miss a couple of them. Let's inject. All settings. There we go. That's the issue, is transfer settings were wrong. Okay, so you can see the basement walls and the crawl space walls. This wall runs 6 inches below the basement. This wall starts 6 feet above the basement. So now if I drop down a story to the foundation story, I actually want to see these walls on that story. So what I'm going to do is select those walls, and under the floor plan and section, I'm going to say that these show on all relevant stories. Okay, that's going to allow them to show on the floor below. You notice these walls turn dashed because they're overhead. If I don't want that, what I can do is change this to cut only, and then they're not potentially going to show up on this story depending on what the floor plan cut plane display is. So if we go to document floor plan cut plane, here's where I can set that cut plane height. If I want to set that cut plane height at, say, 8 feet, then those walls show up. I would have to then, let's just create a folder in here so we're not jumbling through this. Right, so I can right click on this and save this view. That floor plan cut plane is part of that view now. Now if I want to show these as outlines, what I can do is I can switch this back to projected with overhead, for example, and then I can change the overhead line type to be solid. Let's find that solid line type here. And now my projected walls show solid. I can save this. Oh, and then let's go back to document and floor plan cut plane, and we'll set this to 6 feet, or sorry, 4 feet rather. So we're dropping this back down outside the range of those walls. So now you can see those walls, because they're overhead, they're showing outlines. So that's another option. Save that view so we can see the differences. So here, floor plan cut plane is moved up to 8 feet. So they're showing cut through. Here the floor plan cut plane is back down at 4 feet, so that they're showing as outlines. Now if we drop down to the basement story, you see that these walls are still showing up. That's because if we go to the section running through here, right, that's because these walls are, excuse me, I don't have my mouse, so it's a little bit difficult navigating. These walls are extending down to that story. So they're set to all relevant stories. This story is relevant because these walls are just kissing the top of that. So If I want the other walls to show up, I have to then go into my floor plan cut plane settings and make sure that they're being included. So these walls are already relevant because they're running into that stories. I have to, into the foundation story. I'm on the foundation here. I have to make the foundation story or a foundation view where those cripple walls or crawl space walls are relevant for. So we're going to go to Document, Floor Plan Cut Plane, and we're saying show 2 stories above, and let's go ahead and make this like 8 feet. Now those walls are relevant. So the walls here are showing with their fill. If I want these walls to show with their fill, let's just go ahead and save this. If I want my foundation to show with all the walls with the fill, what I can do is go to Document, Floor Plan Cut Plane, and the cut plane height is to current story. So if I say that this cut plane is at 8 feet, these walls show up as cut as well. So that is another option. Even though I'm on the foundation story, these walls technically live on the basement story. If I look here, the home story is the basement story. I can show them as cut through. So let's save that current view here. Right, so I have a foundation here where these are shown as overhead, and I have one here where they're shown as cut through. I have a basement where they're shown as cut through, and one where they're shown as overhead. If I want to show a difference between the walls here and the walls here for my floor plan display, I'm seeing the concrete here. Just to give you the overview here, that concrete looks like concrete because of the building material that's being used. Concrete structural, that's the fill that's being used. If I want to show my walls with a different fill, I can do that here. I can set the default pen to something else. That's going to change how those walls appear when they're cut through. If I want some sort of like color code or key, what I can do is set up a graphic override to say like all of my stem walls versus basement walls are different colors. So let's go ahead and take these, and I'm going to add an element ID, and we'll call this stem wall. And then the other walls down here, I'm going to call those basement walls, or retaining wall, or whatever we want to call them. Okay, so now I can go to the graphic overrides, and I can have just like I have these views over here where the walls are showing up differently for different views. What I can do is, let me shrink this down. I can create a rule. Let's go ahead and create a new rule. And I'm going to call this foundation stem wall. And we're going to add element ID contains stem, and I'm going to override the fill type, and let's make these let's see here, we'll just use this stipple fill. So I'm going to override the fill to be stipple. Here I have the 3 different fill types: cover fill, cut fill, drafting fill. Let's name this rule stem wall fill. And then I can also override the foreground, the background pen. So again, drafting fill, cover fill, cut fill. I'm only worried about the cut fill in this case. So let's go ahead and make that color, and this is just for illustration purposes. You can make these fills and these pen colors whatever you want. Let's create a new rule again, and we'll call this basement wall. Right, and so we're going to add a rule here, and element ID contains basement. And same thing here. I'm going to change the fill type, the foreground and the background pen, and let's pick a different fill here. Let's use this one, and we'll go to that pen and that pen. Okay. So now we're going to say OK, and OK, and then I'm going to create a new view setting. So I created the rules to override, and I'm going to call this my foundation wall diagram. And I'm going to add those 2 new rules in here. You can see them highlighted blue here because they're new. Go ahead and say OK here and OK here. And there you see the fills and the pens have been changed. And again, those can be changed to whatever fills and pens you want. Now those are not the default, but if I right click and say save current view, and I'm going to create a custom name and we'll call this wall height diagrams. Right? So I can have a foundation plan where these are using that typical, whatever the standard building material fill you want. You know, if you're using block, you might use a different building material here. Let's change these back to concrete. Just for clarity, right? So here's my concrete walls. The pen and the fill is by building material. But then I have the exception to this where I have this diagram where I'm showing those different wall heights with different colors. And just to rehash here, so we've got, this is the basement story with all walls cut through by floor plan cut plane setting. If we look here, that floor plan cut plane setting was set in the view settings to show the cut plane height at 8 feet, so they're cut through. This view right here shows them uncut, and that's because their floor plan cut plane is set to 4 feet. Down here on the foundation story, so going down a story, this one looks identical to that last one, even though it's on the story -2. It's on that foundation story. In the settings, its floor plan cut plane is at 4 feet, but I'm showing walls up to 8 feet above the stories above. So it could include things that I don't want, so you have to be kind of careful about layers and things like that. This one is showing floor plan cut plane. Again, this is on the foundation story. It's down a story, and the cut plane has shifted up to where it's actually running through those walls, so they're showing. This one right here is using that same floor plan cut plane setting, but I've added a graphic override to change what those walls look like. Okay, so let's talk about footings. There are a lot of different ways to do footings. A lot of people use beams. I actually prefer slabs, and I'm going to show you my method for modeling slabs. I'm going to put these on the footing layer. Whatever template you're using, you should have a foundation or footing layer. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw a simple slab from here to here. This is my main foundation slab. I'm going to make sure that this slab, it's concrete structural. It's whatever 8 or 10 inches thick, whatever that needs to be. The reference plane is at the top. It's on the foundation. It's 0 to foundation. So my foundation is top of footing. You could just as easily make the foundation bottom of footing. I'm doing it top of footing because that's sort of where it makes most sense to extend the walls to. I have cut lines, uncut lines, hidden lines. I can show this on home story, 1 story up, 1 story down. The nice thing about slabs is they have a whole range of different stories. You can even set custom story ranges. But in this case, I don't need to see my footings on the basement story. This is why I typically will have a separate basement story if I have a basement. If I just have a crawl space, the crawl space and foundation can all be on the same story. But they relate to that story. So it's not floating way above the story or anything. That's why usually when I start a project, I start by adjusting the story settings. I'm gonna actually add a element ID. Should I need it, I'm gonna call this basement footings. We'll say okay. So now this footing, if we look at this in 3D, right, this footing extends all the way across the building. This wall bears on that footing. You can see that there. But I don't want this footing across the whole basement. I only want it within or strip footing around the building. So what I'm going to do is offset this out 8 inches, right? So that would be, that's my footing. I'm showing that dashed here. That's fine. Again, that would be under the outlines. If I wanted it to be a different line type, I can change that right here. I'm going to grab this edge, and then right here I have offset all edges. Now if I just offset that, it's just going to bring it in. But what I do is I offset all edges and then hit the Option key on a Mac keyboard, and I'm going to offset this over 2 feet. So now I have a slab here and a slab here. I'm going to grab this slab, this slab rather. I'm going to use the subtract option, hold down space, and magic wand out that inner slab and then delete it. Right, so here's that slab. One of the reasons I really like using slabs for footings is that should I need to add, let's say, a pad footing integrated into this, I can just grab the pet palette here and I can say I've got a 6 by 6 pad footing. and then that's dumped right in there. Obviously, you could be more precise and actually trace something out, put some guidelines down, whatever you need. And it becomes really quick to have like central load-bearing strips. You know, if I don't have a wall here, maybe there's a framed wall above, I have that there. It becomes really quick to add, manipulate, and sculpt out this footing. Let's do the same thing over here. All right, so if I go here to here, offset this out 8 inches, offset all edges back in, copy it with the Option key, 2 feet, click this edge, subtract out, and delete this. Now this footing right here needs to end at the wall right here. So let's go ahead and split that. I use the / key for the split, but it's up here on my toolbar. It's also under the Edit and Reshape menu. I'm going to pull this edge over to here. Now let's look at this in 3D. So this footing's way down here. Let's go ahead and pull this up to right there. All right, so now we look at this in plan view. Now this is still showing. If I go to this foundation story, for example, it's still showing. Because it's set to home story, it's going to show on home story. There is no projection settings. So it's another advantage to these slabs is that whatever the settings for the fills and the pens are, that's how they're going to show up no matter what the floor plan settings are. As long as the layer is visible, the slab should show if they're set to home story. Okay, so if I want to delineate between my stem wall footings and my main footings, right, so I've got this basement footing here, and I've got this, let's call this stem footing. Technically, I could go through that same graphic override exercise. I can also set a default cover fill for these. So if we click right here under cover fills, let's add a dash dot hatch. Again, that could be any fill you want. I'm not really going to use the fill from the surface. You could technically if you had the fill on the surface that you wanted, but I don't really care to have a fill over my concrete footings. It's just for a floor plan diagram. So I'm going to say OK here. And now you can see that those show with that hatch. If we go here, this is cut through. This one's not. This one shows those stem walls with their footings below. I can change the cover fill of this, right? So maybe this one relates to that stem wall. I can change this one so that its pen relates to its stem wall. Something like that maybe, right? So now you can see the correlation there. But these are not by graphic override. So it's foundation, it's the same color here, same color there, same color there. Now if I did want it to be graphic override, so this is maybe a default foundation and then I want a foundation diagram where these are showing to match, what I could do there is under my foundation graphic override, there's a couple of things you can do. You could, so this is already all types in stem. If I wanted the fills to match, I could say I'm going to override cover fills as well. And there you see they should be. Sorry. Oh, right. I overrode this one right here. So the cover fill pens are being overridden to match. I don't need to create new rules. I've just modified the foundation stem wall rule. It's still using its original fill, right? Because I haven't override the cover fill. If I hit here, that foundation cover fill will be stipple as well, and then you won't be able to distinguish between the stem wall and the footing. So I'm just overriding the pens for that. If we go to the foundation basement wall, do the same thing, override the pens, but leave the cover fill alone. We're not overriding the fill type, we're overriding the pens for that cover fill. And say, okay, now these match with their different fills, these match with their different fills. Because that's by graphic override, if I go back into here, it's going to use whatever the default pens for these were. Okay. So that's a few different ways to handle these. I do want to look at one other option. So if I grab my walls, I drop the wall tool and I'm going to drag a copy of these up. So I want to show you how to use beams, but there's one other thing here that's missing actually. And another reason that I really like the slabs for footings. So here, for example, if I want to connect these with like a turn down strip, what I can do here is pull this to here, pull this to here, stretch this down, just kind of sculpting it out in 3D. And what I can do is cut this edge at maybe 60 degrees, right? Now because this is set to the top of the slab, not the bottom of the slab, it can be a bit of a guess and check if this needed to cut over to here. Oops. Let me get the right option here. So I can pull this to here and kind of guess and check my way around, get it kind of close. Or I can set this to right here and be a little bit more precise. You get a little bit better control that way. But anyway, that's an easy way to model these sort of turn down edges. Let's go ahead and delete that one, and we'll just copy this over. So right here, whatever my need is for this foundation, I can do foundation elevations, I can do foundation axons, the foundation plans, all sort of graphically managed and controlled right here with just walls and slabs. Okay, so let's take a look at the beam option right here. So if I want to model the foundation with beams, beams have one advantage in my mind, and that is this reference axis. So if my beam is a concrete beam here, let's make it 10 inches by 2 feet, not 10 feet, 10 inches by 2 feet. The reference axis off of the center can have a 4-inch offset. This is the one reason that I like these beams for footings. Let's go ahead and put these on foundations. I can do the floor plan display and set this to that same hatch option right here. Generally speaking, I don't want to show a reference line on my foundation. And then we can just click right here and trace this out. Right, so I have that cover fill, I have my beams showing up the way I need. Let's grab all those beams, right click, display order, send to back. Let's look at that in 3D. So if these beams drop down, right, there's still, location is still on the foundation story. There's 0 to foundation story because that reference is at the top of the beam. Go ahead and say OK, and look at that in floor plan. So there are those beams. Just like with the slabs, if I set floor plan display, if I call this basement footing, right, and then look at the wall height diagrams, I can see that that same graphic override here is applying. Let's go ahead and copy these over to here. So I'm going to select these 3 beams, copy them here. I'm going to split them at this wall, and I'm going to call these stem wall footings. Right, and then the graphic override applies to them because of the rule. Let's go to 3D here. And we'll pull these up and look at this in floor plan. All right, so I have my foundation options here, here, and here. The beams do have projection settings that the slabs don't have. So if I wanted to show these as overhead, the floor plan display, we can say outlines only, projected with overhead, right? Projected with overhead is potentially going to change its appearance because it's an overhead beam. Let's just take a look. Yeah, so here you can see where the floor plan cut plane is below that beam, they show dashed. Where it's above that beam, the floor plan cut plane is above here, it shows with its cover fill. The wall height diagram, because that floor plan cut plane is above, it shows with its fills as well. So here I'm not showing any fills on the stem or the footing because they're overhead. So they're getting the overhead projection display option. You really have to sort of manage per view that floor plan cut plane to manage these. Okay, so here's that same foundation with beams. Now, if I have conditions where I have maybe an internal stem wall like here, you could do that with another beam. If I have a pad footing like I had below, I could technically do that with another beam. Let's make this, well, first we'll go to the beam settings, and we'll change this offset to 0, and we'll make this 6 feet wide, right? So this beam has to run perpendicular to the other beam so that it intersects cleanly. So this just means that it's an extra element, right? Instead of having this one continuous footing here as one element, now I've got 2 beams right here for this and this. I can do the same thing here, and I could put another pad footing here. We gotta knock this back in display order. So it's just another thing to manage, right? So when you have extra things, there's potential for extra conflicts. Generally speaking, my rule of thumb is to model with as much detail as we can with as few elements as possible. Obviously, there's going to be exceptions to that when we get into schedules and stuff like that. Sometimes we have to pick things apart a little bit more. Okay, so now let's take a look at this footing drop right here. You could technically just add a slab like we had below, but if we're being consistent, we will go ahead and drag a copy of this in place. We'll pull this to something like that, and we'll look at that in 3D. Let's find that beam right there. Okay, so I'm going to drag a copy of that down. I'm going to change the slope of this right here. I'm going to change the thickness of this right here. So this is where beams kind of get a little bit screwy. You could technically set this to a separate intersection group. You could technically offset it over. There's different ways that you can manage this and get it to not intersect with the other beams. Something like that maybe. Something like that. I'm being very imprecise here. Generally speaking, I would look at it like an elevation view to get this exactly where I need it. But let's go ahead and set that as my target. Set this as my operator, do a subtraction with upward extrusion and execute. Beams don't like to work for targets and operators. Let's try that one more time. So I think it's because these two are already intersecting and it can't find that piece to trim out. But again, this might be where the beams just kind of don't work as the best tool for this job. Because they want to try to intersect with each other. That's an advantage for things like those pad footings. May not work so well for situations like this, but we do have these other sort of options to fall back on. So I can easily create a combination of these two where I'm using slabs for certain parts, or maybe I'm not even worried about showing this part, you know, if it doesn't show up in any of my drawings. Generally speaking, if I have a complex foundation that has footing steps and stuff like this in it and pad footing locations, I might do a floor plan, or sorry, not floor plan, excuse me, a foundation axon. So, or several foundation axons to show exactly what's going on. I've done some sites where they're just very big, sprawling sites down a steep slope, or even where there's a lot of different footing and top of slab changes. So if I take this and I'm going to isolate it out and go 3D here, I can right click and save this. Come on. Save current view. So there's a foundation axon 3D view, but if I go to document, documented tools, new 3D document, foundation axon, right? Here's a foundation axon that's, and you can see it's even overriding the surfaces here because of that graphic override rule that I have right here. If I say no overrides, those pens now show as their default surface setting. Because that override is set to override the cover fill pens of anything that's called a stem wall or anything that's called a basement. These show as pink, these show as blue. So that can also be a really great way to show 3D diagrams of that same corresponding wall height diagram. Let's go ahead and save current view and foundation axon, right? And just like with the wall here, I've got that graphic override that's changing those settings. So that's a little bit about basement walls, foundation walls, stem walls. Here I could see this is coming through. We'll go display order, send to back. Oh, it's, yeah, but it's not masking it out because where it's cut. That one is. Okay, so I hope this helps. I hope it gives you some ideas on how to graphically manage and control what your foundation plan looks like.